So in today's problems that you'll have in the homework to do, you're going to be always multiplying a trinomial by a binomial. Doesn't matter which one comes first. But one of the polynomials will be a trinomial. The other one will be a binomial. And I'm going to teach you today how to use the rectangle method. And I'm also going to teach you how to use vertical multiplication. You are actually familiar with vertical multiplication. It's what you do all the time when you're not using a calculator. If I have you multiply, if I said to you, no calculators allowed, and I asked you to multiply 145 times 23, you use vertical multiplication to do that. We take 3 times the 5, and then we end up having to carry something, which we won't have to do in this. We don't have to do any carrying in polynomial multiplication. But so this will look familiar to you because we're already familiar with vertical multiplication. And really what you might not have done is any rectangle multiplication using the rectangle model. Tell me, how do we find the area of a rectangle? Length times width. So we have to take whatever the length is and multiply it by whatever the width is. And so what we're going to do is we're going to draw one big rectangle that's going to have lots of small rectangles in it. And when we are taking this binomial times that trinomial, we're really finding the area of a rectangle. We could call this its length, and we could call this its width, and we would say length times width, what are we going to get? But what we're going to do is we're going to take that, and within that big rectangle, we're going to have all the multiplications, those 6 multiplications that we will have, we'll have 6 little rectangles in there that will help us get our final area of the rectangle. So what we're going to do is we're going to put x, let's put the x plus 3 down here. So x plus 3 is going to go on the side of our rectangle, and you can put the plus sign like right there. And then the x squared, oh, well, what's our first move here? We got a subtraction there, don't we? What do we need to do with that subtraction? What do we need to do with this subtraction?
Change it
to add the opposite. So we're going to make that plus a negative 4x. That's the only subtraction in there. So we're going to have plus a negative 4x, and then we're going to say plus 6, okay? And we're going to draw our rectangle according to that size. So we're going to have a line here where this addition is, where it separates those 2 terms. And then we're going to put lines where the other 2 addition signs are to represent, so we have all the terms represented. There's 3 terms, so we end up with 3 boxes going, we have 3 columns, I guess you should say. And then we have 2 terms in this one, so we have 2 rows going across. So what's really happening here is this is like the width of a rectangle. X plus 3 is the width of our rectangle. X squared plus negative 4x plus 6 is the length of our rectangle. So we're really going to find the area of that whole big rectangle. But we're going to do it pieces at a time and then add them all together. So if we're going to find the area of the first little rectangle, what would we actually have to multiply? What would we take?
X times x squared.
Yeah, we'd have to take the x times the x squared and say that that rectangle has an area of what?
X cubed.
X cubed. That little rectangle has an area of x cubed. Its width is x, its length is x squared. We're just talking about that one little rectangle. So x times x squared is x cubed. Then we'll move over to the next rectangle and say it has a width of what? What's its width? This rectangle right here, what's its width? X, and then its length is?
Negative 4x.
Negative 4x. So what's x times negative 4x?
Negative 4x squared.
Negative 4x squared. What's the width of this rectangle? X. What's its length? 6. So what's its area? 6x. Okay, now we move down to our next row of rectangles. What's the width of this first rectangle down here in the bottom? What's its width?
3.
And its length is?
X squared.
X squared. So length times width? 3x squared. The area of this little rectangle is 3x squared.
Oh, that's just neat.
What's the area of the next rectangle?
3.
This time I jumped over those two. What's the area?
Negative 12.
Negative 12x, yeah, which I fooled you. I skipped over and said, what's the area? Negative 3, or I mean, positive 3 times negative 4x is negative 12x. What's the area of our last rectangle? 18. Okay. We now need to add all those areas together to get the area of the whole rectangle, don't we? We have areas of all the pieces, and now we add them together. Here's what I like to do. I like to circle the like terms in, I like to put it's not really a circle, it's going to be more like looks like a peanut. Those are like terms, aren't they? Okay, are there any other like terms in there?
Negative 12x and 6x.
Yeah, the negative 12x and the 6x are also like terms, so I'm going to group them together. And are those the only groups of like terms we have?
Yeah.
Okay, let's just go over here to the side, and let's just add those like terms together. We have 3x squared plus negative 4x squared. What's that become?
Negative 1.
Negative 1x squared. And then let's do the other group of like terms. We have negative 12x plus 6x. What's that become?
Negative 6x.
Negative 6x. Because now what we're going to do is we're going to take that that's circled together over here. We're going to put those in our addition problem. So x cubed didn't have anything to be added to. Our x squareds added up to negative 1x squared. Our x's added up to a negative 6x. And the 18 didn't have anything to be added to.
Do you have to do them in order?
It is a good idea just to do them in standard order right away so that you don't have to worry about redoing it at the end. Okay, so now we've already combined the like terms, so all we need to do is clean it up, don't we? How do we clean this up? What's it look like cleaned up?
X cubed subtract 1x
To the third minus,
1x squared.
no, minus
X squared.
x squared,
Subtract 6x.
subtract 6x,
Plus 18.
plus 18. We want to learn how to clean it up totally so that's how we would see it in an answer bank.
You gave us all that white space for nothing.
Oh, and I did not. That's only the rectangle method. We're going to practice both methods
Oh,
and see which one we like better.
Okay.
Alright, so this was our rectangle method. How many of you like the rectangle so far?
Yeah, I like that.
Okay, a few of you? You like this? Okay.
I think I'll do it the old-fashioned way, make it on the board.
Okay, now we're going to do the vertical method. That was the rectangle. I don't think we have to name it because we can see that we drew a rectangle. We're going to use the vertical model now to do it.
Is this one going to be complicated?
No, it's really not. I think you're going to like this one. This is my favorite way to do it. Okay. So,
I had a
no,
feeling.
it isn't just because I like math. It's really, I think let's just give it a chance here. Okay, when we multiply 3-digit numbers versus 2-digit numbers, which number goes on the top line? The 2-digit or the 3-digit? The 3-digit. The one that has more digits goes above the other when we line them up vertically. So we do the same thing with the polynomials. We want the 3-term polynomial on top, so x squared, is it plus a negative 4x? Yeah. And then plus what? 6. Okay. And then the 2-term one will be underneath it, which is x squared plus, or x plus 3. And notice how I line that up. I put the constants in a vertical row or column. I put the x's in a vertical column. And do we have both of our polynomials represented correctly?
Yes.
Okay. We're going to do the same thing we do when we do multiplication with numbers. Put a multiplication bar there, like your line.
Oh, I already like this way.
And guess what we're going to do? We're going to start over here like we do in the multiplication that I had up above, 145 5 times 23 or whatever it was.
Oh, nice.
We're gonna take 3 times 6, what is that?
18.
18. Now we're gonna go and we're gonna say 3 times negative 4x.
Negative 12x.
Negative 12x.
Oh, I see the confusion.
Oh yeah, that's me.
And we put a plus sign, and we say what's 3 times x squared?
3x squared.
Okay. So everybody follow what we just did there? So we didn't have to do any carrying, but it's no different than when we, remember when I wrote this number up all the way back up here, we said 3 times 5, 15. But instead of what we do here, it is really 15, but we just carry it right away instead of writing it like this. This is 15, and then we have 3 times 40, really. So 3 times 40 is 120, but we don't write 120. We put a 2 there, and we carry the 100, because the 2 is in the tens place, and we carry the 100, and 3 times 100 is 300. So we just have a shortcut way to do that with numbers, but really the same thing is happening. Because when we multiply this, now I'm going to do it down here. 3 times 5 is 15. We carry the 1. That becomes 13. 12 plus 1 is 13. Carry my 1 is 4. So that should come to 435. Does this add up to 435? 300 plus 120? 420 plus 15?
Oh, okay.
435. So they just, we don't have to go through, thank goodness we don't have to go through all that work. We didn't learn to multiply like that, but that's really what's going on. 5 is in the ones place, so 3 times 5 is 15. 4 is in the tens place, so 3 times 40 is 120. 1 is in the hundreds place, so 3 times 100 is 300. But we shortcut it. We don't do that, we just carry things. We carry those tens over, and we carry those hundreds over, and it turns out in a quicker fashion. So down here, we just don't have to do any carrying because we can't. There aren't any things that we can actually put together. So now we're going to do the same thing, though, that we would do in that other one. We're going to move over a space. You know how many of you put a 0 here? I don't, but do some of you put a 0 here when you're doing multiplication and you move down to the next row?
Yes.
Yeah? Okay, you can still put it there if you want. I typically don't. I just move over and I start underneath here. And I say, okay, x times 6 is 6x. Now we're working with the x. X times 6 is 6x plus x times negative 4x.
I don't like this way. I lied.
X times negative 4x. Okay, I'm losing you. We took x times 6. Now we're taking x times negative 4x.
Negative 4x squared.
Okay, negative 4x squared. And now we're going to take that x times the x squared. What's that?
X cubed.
X cubed. So we have plus x cubed.
Then you add them together.
Now we go like this. We're just like we're multiplying numbers.
You add them together.
And we add them together. Now, the cool thing about polynomials is you don't have to start at the back because you're not going to have anything to carry. You can start right at the front. X cubed doesn't have anything else to be added to. What's 3x squared plus negative 4x squared?
Negative 1x squared.
Negative 1x squared.
Plus negative 6x.
Negative 12 plus 6 is negative 6x.
Plus
18 has either a 0 to be added to or nothing. Either way, it's 18. Oh, does that look familiar? Look at there. There it is, right there. Same thing, isn't it? Same thing going on here. We have negative, or we have x cubed plus negative 1x squared plus negative 6x plus 18. All we got to do is clean it up. X cubed minus x squared minus 6x plus 18. We get the same answer. Okay, now you're ready to vote for which one you like?
Yeah.
First
Yes.
one.
I vote
You
for.
still like the rectangle?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. Maybe it is because I'm a math geek, I like the vertical, huh?
You actually really like math.
I do really actually like math.
I don't understand that.
I'm sorry that doesn't come across to you that I like it. Okay, let's go to the back side. Let's try it again. Oh, here we go.
Can we choose which
You
one?
get to pick the method you want to do. Let's see if you can get the right answer. Because when on my webpage we'll have the notes that has it both ways, and you can go add the other way if you want. So you decide which one you want to do, vertical or rectangle. Remember to change those subtractions though first. Okay, I've shown the setup for the rectangle, and then I will also show the setup for the vertical, so that you make sure you get a good start anyways, okay? Okay, rectangle or vertical setup. I just have to set it up either way so that you make sure you start with a good setup anyway, okay? Levi?
Yeah.
Doing it?
Yeah.
Which way are you doing it?
The second one.
You're doing the vertical?
Yeah.
Okay. So you're working one way or the other. And I'm also going to ask for volunteers when you're done. Okay, you can come up and fill in the rectangle one. I'm going to hold the pen in your finger. Go to you to the end and brought it down this way. Yeah, okay, sure.
You want me to start?
See your finger, I got the color I want to do it in.
Bam.
You just write your finger.
Hey, Mr. Red, usually this time that was supposed to be done for today. Or make sure.
Okay. As Haley did the rectangle way, anybody did the vertical way, and they're done, you want to come up and show us how the vertical way looks?
It's a little messy.
Okay, anybody agree with Haley so far? Anybody that's done? Okay, got a couple in agreement with you. Three, are you actually, okay? So I'm going to show doing vertical since I'm the one who seems to like that way and nobody else does. And then it's going to be I could be coming up with a different answer.
Oh, hold on. My x is positive, and I did the rectangle way.
Your what x is positive?
My 4x squared.
Your 4x is like mine right here?
Yep.
Okay, so I'm going to clean my answer up here. 3x cubed
You just did.
plus 4x squared minus 19x plus.
The only thing
10.
Haley did wrong is a negative times a positive is a negative.
Okay,
Oh,
and so.
Wait, what am I
Oh,
talking
it's
about?
right here. She didn't show her combining like terms. Here's what Haley did. These are like terms here.
Yeah.
And when Haley combined those together, she got a
Oh,
negative 4x squared, but it should be a positive 4x squared, shouldn't it? And then these guys can be put together,
and you get negative 9.
and you get negative 19x. So now her and I agree. So the answer should be, for those of you who agreed with her the first time, she was not right. The answer should be 3x cubed plus 4x squared minus 19x plus 10. How many of you were successful? We need to get it in your notes. You need to be successful in your notes. You're going to be successful in your homework. Okay, questions? Somewhere we're leaving you behind. Okay, then